Want to see something dirty? This chaotic sawmill is so good. I haven't gotten one in volatile. Yo guys, what is up? Max in the Wonderlands video, and today we're going over SPORESPLOSION. This is a Spore Warden Berserker build that I'm updating for Chaos 35. Now, this build was a Chaos level 20 build that primarily used the liquid cooling. Obviously, a lot has changed there, and we learned some new mechanics, found some new weapons, understand the game better, so I wanted to update this build to do even more damage, even without the liquid cooling. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. So we're going to do a super general overview of the build, and then we'll get into the specifics of the gear and the skill tree and the hero points, but I just kind of want to give you like a top-down view first. So to start us off, we are using Torg sticky weapons. Torg stickies in this game, if you did not know, when you have a Torg weapon, you can change it from impact to sticky. Stickies have a bonus that when you apply a bunch to an enemy, you're going to get a damage increase per sticky. These shotguns, for example, are a 18% damage increase, and like my Ludite pistol that I'm using, you can't see it because it's got the enchant on it, but I think it's about a 35% damage increase per sticky. We start by sticking an enemy up. Sticking an enemy up is going to give us our first damage multiplier in Torg stickies. When these are applying, and we're using the Spore Fuse enchant, every one of these stickies has a chance to proc the Spore Fuse enchant, which does poison ability damage. Poison ability damage procs our next damage multiplier, which is Wrath of Nature. Wrath of Nature gives us a 108% damage increase against enemies. In addition to Wrath of Nature giving us a huge damage increase against enemies, we're also using cryo weapons, which gives us Icebreaker. Icebreaker gives us up to 30% damage multiplier against enemies. And on top of that, when we're shooting these Torg stickies in cryo with your 18 projectiles, each one has an individual chance to crit, and we're basically guaranteeing the Tides debuff on enemies, or the Soaked debuff, which is going to increase our cryo damage by 50%. So this like damage pipeline of how we're able to do so much damage is we shoot Torg sticky. Torg sticky gives its own damage multiplier. It's going to proc barrage or this poison explosion, which will give us Wrath of Nature. It's going to proc the Soaked, which will give us this 50 damage multiplier, and it'll proc Icebreaker because we're doing cryo, which will give us this damage multiplier. And all of these multipliers are multiplicative with each other. They are not additive. It's not like 108% damage increase plus 30%. These are all multiplicative damage increases. And so basically, I shoot a bunch of stickies on an enemy. They all impact. It's going to proc our Soaked effect. It's going to proc the poison effect. It's going to proc Wrath of Nature. It's going to give me the chill, and then I pull the reload button, or I hit the reload button, or swap weapons, whatever you want to do, and it triggers these stickies with all of their multiplicative damage increases to just melt enemies. All right, now let's talk gear specifics. Now, while this is a Torg sticky build, there are other options if you do not have Torg stickies, but just letting you know that these weapons are the strongest weapons that you could be using with this build, particularly the Ludite and the Body Rocker, and you can get these from the Chaos Bunnies. Now, my other favorite weapons, I love the Cryo Sawmill. I love the Cryo SMGs, both the Spriggan and the Nightshade. I really enjoy using the Red Hellion on this setup, the Auto Magic. You can use something like the Gluttony with Spore Fuse on it to do some really fun things. The Last Right shotgun is awesome with this cryo setup. There is a decent amount of weapon diversity you can use here, but just letting you know that it is simply best with the Torg stickies. That's where this build really shines. Now, for the rest of the gear, I do have a little bit of a different setup for mobbing and bossing, and I want to explain our mobbing setup because it's really, really fun. So we're using a body rune with the enchant for Spore Warden. Whenever you reload, gain a charge of barrage. And with these Torg sticky weapons, we're reloading a lot. We can only really fire a few shots before we need to reload. And because we're constantly reloading, we're constantly getting barrage. When we can constantly use barrage, we can keep up all of our enchants all the time, such as on action still start, increased damage, or on action still start, increased gun damage, which is really nice. But because we're also spamming barrage, we can also always keep up our survivability by using a harbinger. Activating your action skill instantly restores 50% of your ward over 2 seconds. This gives us a ton of survivability because we're basically always spamming barrage, which will always keep our shield up, and the body rune in of itself will give us our health back and bonus fire damage. So just from these 2 items, we're getting a ton of survivability in getting health back, plus we're getting our ward back all the time. For the Classmod, the best in slot now is the Cape of Tides armor with +3 Wrath of Nature. Your passives can matter. They're obviously going to make a difference, but the main thing you want to look for is as many points into Wrath of Nature as you can get, and then the Cape of Tides armor to allow you to apply the Soaked debuff to give you 150% increased damage. For our spell, I was using this chaotic dark magic buffmeister. I'm going to be honest with you, I really should have been using a lightning one to give me lightning and frost damage, but I figured instead of just like changing it out because all the gameplay was with this chaotic buffmeister, I just let you know that you're going to be looking for a Ka-Chow Pew, probably lightning damage. Once again, I had dark magic, but we actually have pretty good survivability on this build. But one of these spells that is the coolest to use with this is actually this purple spell. This is an amazing spell for mobbing, the Empowering Sigil, where you're looking for cryo damage with the self-cast. This was shown to me by Quag. His channel will be in the description, and it is basically the Frozen Heart from Borderlands 3. You can proc this, and it'll freeze everything around us, which is incredibly nice. Let's see if we can freeze this. Yep, he's frozen. It's got a really low cooldown. Once again, you can see that the spell is already back, and it'll constantly freeze enemies, even at full health, which is incredibly nice for us, because whenever enemies are frozen, we're going to get Icebreaker, which is a big damage multiplier against them. So your 2 options for this build are this like big freezing sigil or the Buffmeister to deal a bunch of damage as well. Buffmeister is not up as often, but it is more damage, but the Empowering Sigil is really, really fun for mobbing. And lastly, for the rest of the gear, I'm using a peg leg with the increased movement speed and reload speed. I like the peg leg on this build because, once again, I'm reloading a ton, and if the less time we spend reloading, the higher our overall DPS is. And then I've got 2 gun damage shotgun rings, basically, that I found with shotgun damage increases and shotgun mag size increases, because primarily I use this shotgun on this build. But if you want to gravitate towards using the pistols or gravitate towards using the SMGs or the sniper, you can do that as well. If that was a little bit difficult to follow along, showing on screen right now is a gear overview of all of the gear that I use for mobbing, that I recommend for mobbing, including their enchants. And now, showing on screen is what I recommend for bossing. Note, for bossing, I am using a Buffmeister, and I do change to a Cursed Wit, because the Cursed Wit is going to give me 100% damage increase, and that's why for all the bossing clips you saw that I was trying to get my shield depleted. Lastly, one fun thing to note that I really was enjoying is using the Frying Pan. I'm not sure if the Frying Pan always comes with Amped, but look for a melee weapon with Amped. Amp is going to give us our next 3 shots 50% amp damage, basically. And amp is really good with multi-pellets in this game, so I was making sure to melee a lot of the enemies first to get my amp damage, and that's just going to push our damage even more over the edge. Before we get into the skill tree, I just want to do a fun little new segment called Taking Off the Classmod, where I take off my Classmod and show you a boss kill. Classmod farming in this game is rough, and I want to give you guys realistic expectations and transparency when it comes to damage of builds with or without good Classmods. Classmods are very important, and specifically mine is giving me a 50% damage increase with cryo damage and a 104% multiplicative damage increase with Wrath of Nature, so we no longer have that big damage increase. I'm still obviously spec'd into Wrath of Nature, but I just wanted to show you guys how this build performs without that Classmod at all, so you can kind of know it before you actually have that Classmod if you can get some damage out of this build. So I hope you guys like enjoy this little segment. I'm hoping for some pretty good damage here. Not terrible, but not like great. Wait. Okay, so I think our bow just brought play. I'm actually not sure what happened there. Let's do one more kill. So we're gonna try that again, but I'm gonna use a Torg sticky shotgun. I'm actually not entirely sure what did all that damage. It looked like my bow like one-shot it, actually. All right, now we got our Torg stickies. So there was pretty good damage. Obviously we're missing a lot of that damage, but still pretty good without that class mod. Like very respectable without that class mod. Now for our skill tree, the Spore Warden tree is pretty cut and dry. We're just going for gun damage, gun crit, ability damage, movement speed, mag size, increased damage with Wrath of Nature, play the angles, which will double dip, and like a lot of our damage increases. And then the Berserker tree is actually where you can kind of spec your points depending on how your build is and what your gear is. For example, Ancestral Frost is a must grab, Icebreaker is a must grab, and I think Instinct on this build is a must grab because it's going to give us 24% reload speed, and spending less time reloading is just overall more DPS. It's these last 7 points that you can kind of spec however you want. Now, if I'm using a Harbinger, Harbinger is going to give me ward back, and I'm spamming Barrage, I don't really need less shield because I actually kind of benefit from having more shield than less. So like you could or you could not spec armored defense. Depending on if you're feeling like you need more survivability, you could or you could not spec Blood Frenzy. The way I'm going to suggest spending these points is going 5 out of 5 old ways, putting 1 point into Relentless Rage, which is going to give us that if we do go down, we get that. We can like stay in our save our soul for longer, and then this last point you could either put into a little bit more health restore or a little bit more area damage or unarmored defenses. Like this kind of point is up to you. If you don't have a Harbinger, I would put it into unarmored defenses. If you do have a Harbinger, maybe keep it out of there, but just for this I'm going to put it 1 point into Blood Frenzy for a little bit more health restore when we're using our body rune. Because we're already getting health back a little bit more and our enrage timer extended. But yeah, those last 7 points are really up to you. If you want movement speed, you could put them there. If you want more area damage, you could put them there. Really just kind of up to you. Real quick, I just want to show my myth rank because I've seen rumors that I have like 1000 myth rank and like 800 points into gun damage or something like that. This is my myth rank. I'm 411 right now. I have 74 unspent points, and I haven't put many points into the like uncapped things. So like I only have 24 into gun damage here, I've got 7 into ability damage here, I've got 11 into spell damage here, and I've got 7 points into melee damage here. But yeah, I am my higher myth rank. That does help me do more damage, but it's not like a bugged or glitched myth rank where like all of my damage is coming from my myth rank or anything even remotely close to that. For our hero points and class power, we are a mix between Berserker power and Spore Warden power. Spore Warden power will give us more damage with Barrage and our Play the Angles Ricochet, and Berserker will give us more damage with the bonus Frost damage increases. For hero points, I recommend putting your points into crit damage and crit chance. We want as much crit chance as possible to be proccing Play the Angles and the Soaked effect. And then the rest of the points I recommend putting in spell cooldown because we don't need action skill cooldown because we're constantly spamming Barrage with our reload enchant. Guys, that is going to do it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. The save file for this build will be down in the Discord. This build is a little bit gear specific in the class mod and the guns it's using, but it's really powerful. I really enjoy this build, and it's a fun gun build to rock at Chaos 35. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.